Honourable leaders of this country, Vice Chairman of the National Assembly, Minister, distinguished parliamentarians, also distinguished representatives of the industry. I feel deeply honoured by the words you have bestowed on us, a tiny country from northeast of Europe. I'm deeply moved of your knowledge about our country. And I'm very proud to also, before we move to digital subjects, to tell you that more than 100 years ago, a book of Korean stories was translated into Estonian language. And from that book, Estonians were able to learn the values of Korean people, your integrity, your brightness. Our people know your country and your people and your progress and your advances and also your worries on this global scheme. We are very similar, I have to say. I feel very much at home here. Thank you for the invitation and allow me now to move on to the digital discussion. Indeed, Estonian government uses a technology which is called Key Signature Infrastructure, KSI, in order to provide public services. It's a blockchain-like technology. It's slightly lighter to apply, cheaper to run, but yes, you could say we are a blockchain-based nation. When did it happen? It happened at the turn of the century. Estonian government then realized that private sector companies everywhere were using more and more digital technologies and realized that if we do not adopt these technologies quickly, we will not be able to do so because all governments globally will be adopting these approaches. And it will be very expensive because, you know, if many rich governments are going for something, then it is extremely expensive. We wanted to be the first ones in. We didn't realize that there will be no followers anytime soon. That was what propelled the decision by Estonian government to create digital identity for our people, based on, indeed, a technology which is very similar to what you know nowadays as blockchain. It allows us to sign documents online and have a timestamp on it. So it exactly provides the functionality of blockchain. What was so important about it was the general approach which we took. And this has nothing to do with technology. This was a legal decision, a lawmaking decision. We decided that in addition to passports in analog world, Estonian citizens will, from now on, at the turn of the century, also have a digital passport, our digital signature. Why we decided to do so? Because at that point of time, private sector was starting to offer services online. And we wanted to copy private sector and offer government services online. And we realized that to do so in a safe format, we absolutely have to have something which will make sure that we know who is online and with whom we are communicating and transacting. For this, normally in analog world, you would use passport. In digital world, you would use digital identity as a passport. For that to function, you need a technology which will make sure that nobody can lie, they are you, and also that it is not only technological, but legally protected. That if you lie, there will be prosecution. It will be a criminal offense. So you cannot pretend you aren't you are somebody else online. And this is not a technological innovation. This is a legal space setting by Estonian Parliament on the proposal of Estonian governments. This is very important to notice. Estonia did not develop technology. We are only 1.3 million people, and at that point we were a middle-income country. What we did, we took into use by government a technology which existed. This is what we did differently. And to this day, we are no creators of technology, but quick followers of technological advances. But this is enough to provide the best public service globally to our people. What is the extent of this digitalized state is maybe easiest to understand if I say that you can do everything online in relation between citizen and the state, apart from getting married and selling property. For these two services, and this is not because of technical reasons, but by decision, of course, for these two services, you have to turn up somewhere. For everything else, you do not turn up. You do everything online. The amount of time saved per citizen per year is 4 to 5 working days, if you compare to the normal administrative burden of a Western European citizen. It also can be measured as 2% of GDP. But to be fair, we also have to say that the upkeep of the system takes about 1% of the GDP, and the development of the system takes another % of the GDP. So it's kind of neutral if you look at the financial impact. But it is not neutral because the benefits are reaped by the weaker parts of the society, because small businesses win more from not having to go to all kinds of offices, tax office, whichever office you can imagine, seeking for permissions to construct, for example, etc. Small businesses have no ways and means to fight big bureaucracy. Big businesses have. So this has definitely enlarged the scope for SME development in Estonia. Similarly, and among our audience, there is a minister and the representatives of the Ministry for Gender Equality. Having a digital ecosystem makes women more equal in a society, because most of the administrative burden which relates to, let's say, social services applications falls to women with small children. Digital state is open 24 hours per day, 365 days a year. You don't have to liberate yourself from your home work or from your work environment to go to any office. You can declare your taxes during the night or early morning, from the beach if you are lucky enough, from wherever you find yourself. This creates equal opportunities for women, and it also creates equal opportunities for people from rural areas. And it also creates equal opportunities for handicapped people who can work from wherever you are. And this has changed our whole culture of thinking what work is, what a working environment is, and how the state should provide for citizens. First of all, let's take how the state should provide for citizens. We are part of the European Union. In European Union, we have the right of free movement of people. Estonian citizens can settle and work everywhere in the European Union. So, how in this environment are we going to guarantee our people their constitutional right, for example, to participate in the voting, in general elections, local elections, European elections? How? Of course, online, because postal voting is not safe. You will not get feedback whether your vote was counted and reached the government offices. And asking people to come home just to vote is disproportionate expense. So in this climate of free movement of people, obligation of a government is to provide an e-voting model. It cannot be done unless you have a digital identity, time-stamped and secure. We provide, since EU enlargement, when we received the right to freely settle elsewhere, e-voting option to our people to vote electronically. It's important to notice that it is a democratic right of a citizen also to demand this service and every other service of our government on paper. It exists, but normally people, well, they are by definition find much more useful ways of spending their time than going and queuing anywhere. So they tend to use services if they know how to use them. And we made them aware that these services are available together with private sector. The private sector actually was carrying part of the cost of developing this common inclusive culture of using digital services. They offered their services free for retired people, for example, all our banks, because then people really had an incentive to opt into digital society. They also paid partially for the training of big parts of Estonian population, again, including elderly people, to make sure that our grandmothers in the future will be Facebook compatible. They are today. But it was work. It was hard work. Together with public sector, this was undertaken. Now I will come to a very important change in the way our people think of work. And I have to say your people and your companies think the same way of work. Work is not a place where you go. Work is something you do. Nowadays, you don't have to gather into enterprises in the morning to work and then go back home in the afternoon. For example, a bookkeeper could maybe work in 2 or 3 enterprises pre-digital area, definitely in one country and one town. Today, a bookkeeper, provided she or he knows the tax code, etc., can work in 10 different countries at the same time, living in your country, or half a year living in your country, half a year somewhere nicer climate, for example. We are a cold country. People might prefer Mediterranean during winter. So, how you now provide services to such people and how you gather taxes? It is a total disruption of our society, is what is ongoing. And Estonian society understands the need to change, also globally, in our thinking of even the work, social system, taxes. I invite you to think together with us that when you have actually joined us and some other countries in creating and accepting that your citizens and your businesses are fully digital, in helping them to be safe in the digital world by providing them with digital identities, therefore making it possible indeed to work globally, what shall we then do to maintain our social systems? They are based on the industrial model of having a work address and a home address. And then you pay taxes, which we normally go and gather at the enterprise level. And then we offer services based on the address people have. This is gone. Totally gone. We need to think of a new method of providing services to our citizens, including social services, education services. Schools need to go online because citizens are global. There must be primary and secondary level education in maternal language for every child in developed countries, wherever the parents find themselves. There must be e-voting for citizens to stay in contact with your country. There must be a model to pay taxes but expect social services wherever you find yourself in this new digital world. I think we need to work together in OECD and in all other international fora to bring understanding that the old industrial world is behind us now. And if we don't do this quickly, our digital nomads will opt out of our models they will go, the richer ones, for private services, and the poorer ones will simply go without social support. And then we have failed as national leaders to support our people in this transition to technologies. Because remember, people and businesses are online anyway. The change is taking place anyway. It's our obligation to support them in this change. Not to say, no, you must have a working address, and then, I mean, if it's companies in our country, then you pay taxes this way, and then we offer you all the services. They just don't accept it, because life has changed. And we need to concentrate our efforts. We, the legal pacemakers, we do not have responsibility for technology development, not at all. But our responsibility is to understand this technological development, not fight back, not ignore, but to support and develop, therefore, the legal space for digital societies. Starting from every country's homework, which is providing digital identity to your people. This is where blockchains come in and other similar technologies. Blockchain, in its most common format, is very heavy to use if you understand that most of the logins into a public ecosystem for services in Estonia, for example, is queries. It's too heavy, too expensive. But if you want to change ledgers and registries and make sure that the change happens simultaneously in all parts of public ecosystem, then blockchain is a handy tool. So you have smartly to understand the needs to provide services, leave technology developers and businesses to provide you with necessary technology, and regulate and legislate for your people. We didn't do, as I already said, anything new technology-wise. We did, and we keep doing permissive, creative, legal space setting in Estonia. And we try also to do this on international scale. You may know that Estonia is standing for the United Nations Security Council non-permanent membership. It's not because we want to simply waste our time to be proud of being part of that illustrious body. Small countries do not have time for tiny objectives. We want to develop international legal space of digital worlds and societies. There are many questions relating to sovereignty if we think that our states are digital. It doesn't take cannons to take us out. It can easily be done by digital means. We came, first time, as a sovereign state under cyber attack in 2007 already. We were the only country which could probably have such an attack against it at that time, and we had it. We were able to wall off our digital environment and fight back the attack. But we didn't have then, and we do not have today, in international understanding, nothing to support us. If we are able to attribute who did it, we may tell this to newspapers. But we do not have a place in international multilateral world where we can complain and call to order those who are providing cyber attacks against sovereignty of independent countries and states. This is a huge void, and that's what we want to remedy by running for the Security Council non-permanent membership. We see this as a necessity. We see this as our obligation to participate in international legal space creation. And we see this as something which will promote use of technology, not restricting the use of technology. Because what we have noticed is that if governments do not understand exactly what the technology is doing in the societies, they tend to ignore this technology. And this creates problems for citizens and for private sector. It is as simple as that. If you take Facebook or Amazon or Google, they are very often told that they did something wrong, or they command too big market share because they are the only providers of identity in the cyber world. Those who accuse these companies normally miss that they have neglected their obligation to give their people digital identities, state-guaranteed internet passports. We have this in our country's ecosystem. You cannot blame private sector for using technologies and offering solutions, stepping in the role of governments. Governments didn't provide for identity, but you know that you cannot transact or communicate if you do not know with whom you're doing it. So private sector stepped into this void, took with great courage, or maybe simply not understanding that they are on the risky ground, these steps to help our citizens in the digital world. We should apologize that we missed out and remedy our action and provide for our citizens identification means which will work globally. Because the advantage created, and some say it's unfair market capacity, is exactly this. Even our citizens who inside Estonia, and to a certain extent as part of the European Union digital market as well, within the European Union, can use their digital passports. We still also, when we want to buy something from further places, like for example from here or from America, we still have to use Facebook or Google or Amazon identity. It's not as safe, it's not as secure. Estonian people feel very uneasy about it. They know it is not safe because they have a safe analog, but we have no option. You see, technology develops. We can help technology development, promote it. First of all, we can take active interest in how this changes our societies. But our obligation is different. It's this legal development of our states, our regions, and then also a multilateral cooperation. This we owe to our people. This is our obligation as legal space setters. Many ask, why Estonia? And these are my final remarks. When we regained our independence 30 years ago, we were very poor. And our public sector, while being told all the time by foreign advisors, IMF, World Bank, that you need to do exactly like Western democracies ahead of you, and then you will catch up. I mean, we are rational beings, and we realize that this is simply wrong. If you copy, you are not catching up. You need to be innovative. So we did a monetary reform, which IMF was strongly against. But when we did and succeeded, then in a couple of years already suggested to everybody else to do it the Estonian way. We did a tax system, proportionate tax system, where every income is taxed similarly. It may be high or low, it may come from rents or capital gains. It's all taxed at the single rate of 20%. This was the advice of the thinkers to all governments globally, but only we took it. Later on in Eastern Europe you find many countries who have copied it, so it's not unique anymore. We do not tax, for example, corporate income at all before you pay dividends. Again, it's innovative legal space setting for indirect investment. Our economy started growing, salaries started converging with Western Europe, and we realized that soon this is over. Whatever is our economic climate and tax space, it will not make anybody to build huge factories in Estonia to use our cheap, well-educated workforce. We needed something bigger, again, something different. And hence came our genome law, making population level genetic testing possible, legal and safe for both citizens and for the companies and scientists using this data in non-personalized format. And also the digital Estonia, which we have spent most time today discussing. See, we realized we want technology in our country. We want companies in our country using and applying this technology. But we did not want to pay good public money for these developments of technology. Hence we created the environment. And not only tax environment, and not only flexible job market, and not only egalitarian education system. We have all these as well. But this is not sufficient. You have to be welcoming to technology. Not in this way that you say, simply come and do whatever you want, but by creating the legal environment which makes it safe for technology to come and do. For example, many biotech companies and genetic engineering companies and pharmacies would not dare to use information of patients, even if it exists, unless it is regulated in the government's law setting that you can. In Estonia, this is regulated. In Iceland, this is also regulating. To this day, there isn't elsewhere. And that is why we have, even if we are not so very high-income country, but 36th globally, it's not low neither, we are very proud of what we have achieved. But this allows us to tell our people, you can donate your genetic information. Yourself, you receive information about the risks of various diseases, the most common markers, like diabetes, cancer risks, heart disease risks. It's a great foundation to preventive medicine. At the other end of the spectrum, companies and scientists can use this data, but we will not tell them, of course, whose data it is, but they can use it as big data. So there is an incentive and an interest to get this data from Estonia, and sometimes we can get medication cheaper for our people because of that, in addition to having a great preventive tool. In digital, it is the same. Since we have this secure sandbox, this has created a vibrant startup market in Estonia. We have 4 unicorns per 1 million people. This wouldn't happen just accidentally. This is no accident. This is the result of smart public law space. And I tell this to you to explain why we think we have achieved this economic development in the last 30 years. From the average salary of about 30 euros to the average salary of 1,300 euros in 30 years. Can be done, but you have to be creative. And the creativity is not limited to private sector. Public sectors can be very creative if they choose to. You have to explain to your people why you're doing it, but you also have to provide your people with the guarantees and security. They have to believe you. And they have to get the experience that you are, for example, in digital, protecting their data. How it is done in Estonia? Well, all governments tell people that their data belongs to them. But they cannot implement, because actually, if you look honestly at the situation, your health register is somewhere in your doctor's office, somewhere in the hospital, and you don't know who reads it. In Estonian e-health system, if somebody reads my data, I'm notified. So my government takes responsibility of informing me if somebody was reading my notes. And if it was not my doctor, I have the right to query. And if I query, and there is no reason this doctor was looking, I will complain, and there will be a criminal case against this person who was snooping. See, again, yes, we use technology, but we do not rely on technology only to provide security. We rely on law. Our people don't blindly trust our government. They rely on law. And therefore, this is in your hands to create this trust, to create this ecosystem for your people. One might ask why we are giving away the secrets of what we are doing. I mean, we are a tiny country, 80% of our economy is export. We feel constrained that so few nations globally are digital, because this means we are not coming to solving this problem of how to tax in this new economy our citizens and provide services to them. and all other related issues. We need you to be with us. We want you to be with us. And we similarly take responsibility also, we hope, in United Nations Security Council to protect us all. Final remark. No state will change because it goes digital. The state culture of your great country will be exactly the same state culture in digital format of your great country. Therefore, we are not providing direct advice, do what we have been doing. Do it your own way, but please do it. Thank you for listening.